Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday, April 25th. And I am back for another edition of Stoppage Time with me and you. Every Friday, we're going to get together. I'm going to talk to you directly, share feelings about what I'm feeling, what I'm dealing with, what's going on in the world around us, conversations I've had related to entrepreneurial thinking and with great entrepreneurial thinkers. And just kind of stay in touch on a direct basis, one-to-one or one-to-many in this case. So it is Friday. I want to do kind of a little bit of a reset. Last week we did Stoppage Time as kind of the relaunch, reset, welcome back, we're back across both our channels, the Entrepreneurial Thinkers podcast channel and this Stoppage Time channel that we share here on YouTube. But today I wanted to kind of jump forward a little bit and just talk about some of the stuff that's going on, some cool things that we've got coming up that you're going to start to notice that are going to be a little bit different. A couple of thoughts about just kind of the general state of the world that are important to me and how it relates to conversations that we get to have on our Entrepreneurial Thinkers show. So first things first, you're going to notice something really cool starting to drop into this feed as well as on our Entrepreneurial Thinker show, which is our shout outs and our recognition of our sponsors that are supporting our work. If it weren't for our sponsors, people that have interceded into my building of this business underneath the umbrella of the Storytellers Company in the last 6 months, I wouldn't be here because I probably would be busy with a day job at McDonald's or the grocery store packing bags or doing something else for a living. But because of the generous support and encouragement, really, honestly, the encouragement as well as the financial support of our sponsors, which is now up to about 14 or 15 different sponsors. Individuals and organizations can sponsor us in multiple different ways. If not for their generous support and their emotional encouragement and they're kind of pushing me forward, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing, and we love what we're doing. So we are super grateful. You're going to start to see recognitions of them. We have two categories that we recognize. One is called Community Champions, and then the other are called Founding Sponsors. And we will present and share their stories and their recognition in different ways. So you'll see today a recognition of our Community Champion group here in this show, and then you'll start to see that regularly show up in our Entrepreneurial Thinkers episodes as we drop them. I'm going to get up because I'm just kind of excited today. There's a lot on my mind. So excuse the moving around a bit here in my apartment. But having said that, one of the other things you're going to notice is in our weekly drops of Entrepreneurial Thinkers episodes, you're going to start to hear, so it's going to be a little bit different rhythm for you as a listener or viewer on our YouTube. You're going to start to hear and or see us insert recognitions of our founding sponsors, or as you might call them, advertisements, right? They're not really advertisements in the traditional sense. They are more sponsor recognition spots, right? So we are sharing with you the stories of these incredible people and the organizations that they run in hopes that you who are avid regular listeners of our community, of our shows, can benefit from knowing these people. So a lot of folks who are existing alumni of our shows, of our Entrepreneurial Thinker show, or as most people would just call them guests, former guests, have many times over the last 4 or 5 years come to us as the intermediary, as the facilitator of relationships between them, right? So we thought that what a more natural spot to begin to offer sponsorship opportunities to a lot of our alumni in hopes that they would support our work because they've experienced our work firsthand, but then also because we know the value that they and their organizations, their funds, their firms represent to the broader entrepreneurial world that we work in, right? Whether it be here in Los Angeles, here in the United States, across Latin America, Mexico, South America, or even beyond, the organizations that these folks represent and are now supporting us in our work, in my ability to produce these shows for you, are incredibly valuable people, incredibly important organizations that are doing really, really cool stuff in their communities and with their clients and or their portfolios. And so we're going to start sharing that with you. So I hope you find it to be a positive value add and not an intrusion in your listening style. We're always going to do it in a thoughtful, artistic, creative way that's both going to amplify these people and their incredible generosity and support of our work, but it's also going to amplify the story of their organization so that you can get to know them. If through these circumstances you start to find organizations that are supporting us that you're like, oh man, I wish I could meet them or find them or know them, you can always reach out to us. And again, we'll be happy to act as an intermediary in that regard.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
That's a little logistical stuff you're going to start to see that's a little bit different in the shows. One other big logistical thing, which we hope is a positive for you, we know it's going to be definitely a positive for us, is historically you have listened to our shows on audio on Thursdays. So we have had a pretty consistent now for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, release schedule on Thursdays on audio. And then as we expanded and rebranded last year, 2024, and we expanded to YouTube, shout out to Deanna who got me finally into the modern world on YouTube, we would release those separately on Mondays. And now we can report, because of the smart use of technology by Deanna and her efficiency in our overall processes, we're able to drop shows now across all channels, audio and video, on Thursdays. This week, Thursday, you will have seen an episode of a conversation both on YouTube as well as on any of the audio channels where you preferably listen to our podcasts, with myself and my friend Thomas Logstrup Reeves here in Los Angeles, where we got together and we talked about European trade. And it was a fascinating conversation. It's a long conversation between two guys who have become fast friends, who are both deeply passionate about the development of entrepreneurial economies, both domestically here in the United States, specifically in Los Angeles, as well as abroad, as well as outside the United States. Thomas has a long history of this. Thomas's firm, Traction, is essentially a business development expansion agency that advises, consults, and provides services for corporations, companies, entrepreneurs, investors who are coming from, mostly in their case, Nordic countries, Northern Europe, the UK, to Los Angeles or to the United States. Thomas is their LA guy. He's their Southern California guy, and that's how we've gotten to know each other. We have a lot of great common friends here in the Los Angeles entrepreneurial economy. But I implore you to take a listen to it, because although it is long and deep, there is a lot of nuggets in there. There's a lot of cool information and lessons that could be applicable no matter if you were trying to expand your business from Santiago, Chile to Mexico, or from Mexico to the US, or from the US to Europe. But what I wanted to highlight for you, kind of as a segue, as I mentioned at the top of this, I'm going to use this show every Friday to talk about things that I see in the world and that I believe are important to be discussed, is I want to use Thomas's episode as an example, because what we talk about is trade. And what we talk about is foreign trade. And we talk about the implications of the current politics in the United States and the Trump administration, and how that, I don't know what to call it, like series of bad decisions, chaotic uncertainty, inject your own adjective or adverb for nuts, how we talk about how the policies and efforts of the current administration here in the United States are essentially retarding, slowing, mitigating, making more difficult the world of global trade. And we don't spend the entire show talking about that, but we do touch on it. And I want to bring this up as an example, because as a case in point, having the conversation about trade, like having the conversation as we have in the past with Alex Gonzalez from Mexico, talking about tariffs and impact on Mexican trade with the U.S. and U.S. trade with Mexico, we're going to continually touch on these things, right? And there are no kind of, as we used to call, using an American phrase, kind of third rail. There are no third rail topics that are untouchable in my world. And if anything, I plan to use this platform and this particular show every Friday to maybe be a bit more vocal, maybe to be a bit more resistant to the nonsense that's being spewed out of Washington, to the disinformation, to the misinformation, which is all this is. It's very intentional, to the horrible policy decisions. So I'm going to use this platform to talk about those things. If you are a deep red pill devotee of MAGA cultism and MAGA policymaking, this is probably not going to be the show for you. Although I would encourage anybody who does have some of those types of beliefs, or has at least entertained some of these mythology around these policies, that it might be interesting, and it definitely will be useful to reference some of the reference points that I'm going to bring into this show, such as pointing you towards the most recent conversation with Thomas Reeves on trade and trade between Europe and the U.S., But I'm also going to talk to you about other issues. We're going to talk about with experts that will come on the Entrepreneurial Thinkers show with me. We're going to talk about local politics and governance. We're going to talk about affordable housing. We're going to talk about inside of affordable housing, kind of what they call NIMBYism, not in my backyard, or YIMBYism, yes, in my backyard, please build more, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about homelessness as a problem and how we got here, over 40 years of bad policy making, circa 1980s US, and how we get ourselves out of it, and how we already are in certain places like Los Angeles making progress and getting ourselves out of it. We're going to talk about economic development in the current environment, right? Because we're going to be in this environment for the next couple of years at least, so we might as well talk about it. We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about climate, and that leads me to kind of one of my next reference points. I had an awesome conversation with arguably, I would say, one of the preeminent climate economics, environmental sustainability leaders in the United States, Matt Peterson. Matt is the CEO of LACI, the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, which I make the case regularly is arguably the most important clean tech incubation, innovation, funding organization probably in the Western United States, if not all of the United States. Matt is a national leader, Matt's a global leader, and Matt is proving the thesis on how we build a better, more sustainable world going forward, but from the bottom up, from a city level up. Not disregarding that which happens at the federal level or at the national level, not disregarding and dismissing the importance of those relationships, but literally kind of saying, okay, if we can't trust our national, federal, governmental partners for policy and or funding, how can we continue to execute on the policies that we know are in the best interests of all of us as humans to have just a more sustainable environment to live in, but also all of us as business people who are interested in the sustainable innovation that comes from moving the world forward as opposed to moving the world backwards. So I'm going to point you to that episode that's going to be coming out, dropping probably next week. So keep an eye out for that. But then I've also got incredible other conversations. I'm going to talk about kind of the future of work and the controversies around return to office policies and politics with Chris Hurd from Aberdeen, Scotland. We're going to dive into that. We're going to talk about just the importance of reinventing your career, reinventing yourself, the way we earn income, the way we make a living, with Goli Kalkorin, who literally is kind of the guru of reinvention and life pivots and career pivots. So we're going to dive into that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusivity in venture capital and private equity, and the importance of investing, continuing to invest in markets outside of the US with Matt Shar. So all of these episodes are coming up, dropping sequentially week after week on our Entrepreneurial Thinkers channels, wherever you enjoy those shows. And the episodes, as I say, touch on issues that are fundamental to advancement and progress, not only as a U.S., as an American citizen, as a U.S. economy, but for the globe, for the world, right? These are just things that, 6 months ago, we all reasonable, thoughtful, educated, informed global people would have just accepted as truths. And now supposedly we're supposed to believe that these are things that are up for debate. Let me be clear, they are not up for debate. These are things, these are realities, these are progressive tactics, policies, plans that are just rooted in fact, rooted in history, rooted in incontrovertible demographic progress. And we're going to use this show, I'm going to use this show to continue to highlight that and talk about it as I see fit, in the idea that I want to continue to create a world that my grandson Leo will be able to live in, air that he will be able to breathe, study at universities that he wants to study at, study things he wants to study, build a professional life and become an entrepreneurial thinker of his own right, no matter what it is that he decides to do. That's the world that I want to have exist for him, and so I'm going to do everything within my power to use my platform and my voice, and any shred of influence that I may have, to talk about it on this show every Friday, but also then to reference you back to conversations that I'm grateful enough to have. And again, tie it all off, right? We're able to have these conversations and I'm able to forward and advance these types of topics and conversations, no matter what noise or attacks may come from the outside, because of the generous support of our sponsors. So please avail yourself of the stories of our sponsors. Applaud their effort to support me to produce this work with Deanna's help, with Anna Paula's help. And I've got a quick book recommendation here. It's called The Art of Possibility. It is by Rosamund Stone Zander and her husband Benjamin Zander. You can find it. It looks like that. I picked it up literally at a neighborhood little book library thing that's out on the sidewalks. And I've been reading it lately, and it's just given me all kinds of encouragement in a time of difficulty, in a time of pessimism and cynicism and even fear for lots of people about speaking about the things which matter. I am leaning back into this book at a time when I'm trying to build this business, the Storytellers Company, and we're fighting through the struggles of that, as I've talked about last week, in trying to build a new business, a new platform around media, around these types of stories, the stories of others, the stories of the entrepreneurial thinkers who I believe will lead us deep into a more successful, sustainable, prosperous 21st century for all. I'm having to remind myself that even on the darkest days when I feel the biggest, most challenge that I might feel, it's to remember that there is nothing but possibility if you choose to accept that possibility exists. So I'm going to lean into the possible, as I always do. I'm the pragmatic optimist, and I'm grateful for you being along on this journey with me. I'm grateful for our sponsors enabling us to have this chance to have these conversations with you. I hope you enjoy how we creatively place those sponsor stories throughout our podcast going forward. And I hope you get excited now that you can enjoy our YouTube and our audio channel releases of new episodes every Thursday from here on out. So peace, happy Friday, happy weekend to you, and we'll see you right back here next week.